For those who actually spent the time watching my close to 6-hour-long collab with Chaos Controlled in Ranking the Girlfriends, first off, thank you. I know 6 hours was a lot. But if you didn't, and I wouldn't blame you, I made a statement during it, and I don't know when, maybe Earl will know and he can pull it up.
I got you!
We're recording this right before Girlfriend 33 comes out, and 33 is like the right 1/3 mark of the way done.
Oh, 1/3 exactly,
so
yeah.
it's like, if we don't get any kind of development, or at least mention of like, yeah, we're eventually going to get to summer or something by now, I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah.
Until Nakamura is
right.
just desperate. Now, we are still early in this supposed volume with Kimari's introduction to the family, so who knows what could happen in the next 7 chapters. So, we'll see. But it's not looking great. My dreams of seeing the girlfriends in winter clothing is slipping through my fingers. But no time to dawdle on that, as we have a new girlfriend to introduce to everyone. Let's get started. I'm Moonlight150, and this is my overview of the latest 100 Girlfriends manga chapter, Chapter 214, Rentaro's Family's After-School Snack. Be sure to support the official release of the series in your region, so maybe one day Nakamura will bring us other weather other than Eternal Spring. And spread that support to the scanlators who do the hard work bringing us these translations to enjoy. Now it's time that I take you to the candy shop.
Welcome to the candy shop.
We open the chapter with same old of Rentaro asking the current members of the family for permission to add yet another. And just like I hoped in the previous video, Kimari is immediately taken aback by seeing 2 other teachers in the lineup. She first thinks that they are supervising Rentaro's family like it's some sort of school club. But without any hesitation or remorse, they just say, nah, we're dating him too, just like all these other students here. But Kimari says there's no way that should happen, as they are teachers and he's a student. No, I used that joke last video, it's too soon. Put it back, Earl. Save it for the next teacher girlfriend, I swear there's probably gonna be another one. And Rentaro calls attention to the fact that Kimari shouldn't be throwing stones in glass houses. Or I guess in this case, giant killer boomerangs, for calling out the hypocrisy of teachers dating Rentaro when she's the new girlfriend and a teacher herself. But don't worry, Kimari is safe from the said giant boomerang because Rentaro intercepted it. Which this conversation brings the straight man out of Kurumi and Karane calling attention to that we're on now teacher number 3, and this is the first one that have a problem with dating a student because, well, this manga is just full of nutcase teachers. They even go so far to admit that they outright assaulted him on each of their first encounters, and with Hahari chiming in that they technically started dating before she became chairwoman of the school, so it's all peachy keen, right?
No.
Also, I love Hikari's face here. She's usually such a ray of sunshine and positivity and playfulness, but then you remind her of the fact that her mother is also dating her beloved boyfriend, and she wishes the world would just burn away before her cold dead eyes. But all these new in society rule-breaking revelations takes its toll on Kimari's mental state, mostly the fact that she has been working for a woman who is dating a student for over 210 chapters. Following all of that, Kishka comes to Kimari's defense, as we established in the last chapter that Kishka is in her civics class, and lets everyone know that her impression of Kimari was that she is indeed super uptight and non-flexible when it comes to the rules and order, but now she seems that she is now at least flexible enough to go along with dating a student. But Kimari tries to defend herself by reiterating that dating a student and that the entirety of this group relationship goes against everything that society stands for. But that metaphorical boomerang comes right back as this lecture falls apart, because immediately after denouncing the student-teacher relationship she finds herself in and saying all this societal taboo out loud, it gets her all flustered and possibly turned on. She's an adult, I'm allowed to say that about her. Which not only does Kimari find all this hot, but Hikari finds Kimari finding this hot herself. I think I've said the word hot too many times now. Also, good to have you back to your normal lewd self, Hikari. After an explanation from Rentaro about Kimari's whole deal to everyone starts to reminisce about times that they have gone out to break some rules themselves, particularly Ms. Natty, who, like Kimari's backstory, had classmates that went to go buy snacks after school from the candy shop. Though hearing an esteemed colleague admit to doing such heinous rule-breaking in her youth makes Kimari break out into another flusterfit. Yes, I'm inventing the word flusterfit because there's no better explanation for Kimari's actions here other than turned on, so we're going with flusterfit. Trademark Moonlight. But this flusterfit is cut short as Himika reminds everyone that getting snacks after school isn't against the rules at their high school, which immediately snaps Kimari out of it. But Hahari, wanting to continue the fun for the new girlfriend, abuses her authority as chairwoman to make buying snacks after school against the rule for this day only, which gets Kimari right back into the mood. Not only that, but to really lean into their activity for the day, she has Nozawa quickly dress everyone into school uniforms, including Hahari herself to her own embarrassment. Oh, and Momoha says they look like prostitutes. Let's not linger on that too long. Except for that's a nice callback to one of the coldest lines in the series, back when Hikari was calling her own mother a prostitute for dressing like a schoolgirl at her age. And now with a trip to the candy store as the destination, Saki recommends heading out to her usual haunt, which is conveniently called My Usual Haunt. I forgot to make that joke in Saki's intro chapter, so I'm thankful I get to use it here. Also, I love the gat moe of Saki, who is always trying to put on this tough exterior, but acts like a little kid when in the presence of authority figures, like how she greets the candy store owner. With this being a celebration of Kimari joining the group, Rentaro offers to cover the expenses of the outing, but Kimari steps in offering that herself as she is the adult of the group. Which, I mean, there's like 3 other adults here, 4 if you count Yaku. Why aren't they offering to cover the expenses? But no time to dwell on that though, as this gesture seems to win everyone over as they thank her for treating them. And we get this great montage of everyone enjoying various snacks, my favorite probably being this one of Uto, Momiji, Hasua, Matsuri, and Natty blowing bubblegum, mainly because of the detail put into this image, such as Natty and Momiji seeming to have no problem blowing bubbles, whereas Matsuri and Hasua seem to be struggling. And Uto, being the composed girl failure that she is, has already popped her bubble all over her face, but is unbothered by it. After the montage, we get an interaction between Kimari and Kishka, where Kishka finds a candy pacifier that catches her interest. Noticing this, Kimari reminds her that it's her treat and to not hold back. But this puts Kishka in a difficult position as she doesn't want to trample on Kimari's offer, but she knows herself well enough, and we know her well enough, that something like that will switch her over into baby mode. But her side of not wanting to dismiss Kimari's offer wins out, and she ends up taking the candy pacifier. And as Kimari thanks Kishka for what happened earlier on the rooftop where she came to her defense, it's all on deaf ears as Kishka has gone baby mode instantaneously and isn't paying attention to what Kimari is saying. And it seems like this place has more than just candy as Hasua and Saki start digging into some tonkatsu ramen, which Saki promptly handed over to Kurumi shortly after for being too spicy. But noticing some girlfriends eating food instead of candy snacks, both Kimari and Chio go into lecture mode about how that will spoil their appetite for dinner, and they have themselves a little synchronization of the bonding between the 2 rule enforcers. And hold on just a candy munching minute, is that a calendar in the background? Oh shit, that's the alarm when new 100 Girlfriends timeline evidence releases. I wasn't expecting this to go off so soon. Okay, pause the review real quick. We need to dissect this immediately. Okay, well at least keep the lights on, Earl. We need those. So this calendar, what can we get from it? Does it actually tell us anything? Well, that's the interesting part. Let's go over both sides of the argument and see if we can come up with an answer. First up, evidence for believing the calendar. What's interesting about this calendar is, well, the calendar itself. The fact it's a calendar for a month that contains 31 days, as you can see at the bottom here. But this is also a 31-day month that is preceded by another month that also includes 31 days, as we see at the top here from the previous month. And the only time where 2 31-day months are back-to-back are July and August. So with this being the following month, it has to be August. But not only that, let's go a step further. Notice how the 1st of August here is on a Saturday, and the 31st is on a Monday. If you were to go through all of the August calendars and look for that specific setup for August, you find this would be August 2020, or August 2026, which I don't think this is a future story, so let's toss that out. And isn't that a fun coincidence that the series began in December of 2019? So if we were to take the series at face value that we have been in Forever Spring since the beginning of the school year of the following year that the series started in, it would be August 2020. This better lines up instead of being a calendar of August 2025 of our real world year. Have we been unceremoniously in summer for a while now? When could that have possibly found-
Because take a looky here, right there at the bottom of the page. It's finally happening, folks. The family is going on vacation.
Was that it? Was the entirety of their summer break only shown for the vacation trip and floating island escape? And then everything following that has been their second semester? It would line up. The summer vacation happens and then they come back and now it's August? Okay, much like the cold water that splashed Kimari out of her fluster fit, I'm gonna have to hit you all with some cold reality. Let's talk about the evidence against it. Firstly, some in-universe stuff. Typical Japanese summer vacations run from late July to August, so unless this chapter happened at the very beginning of the second semester at the end of August, it doesn't match up. We have had a lot of chapters since that vacation, but more importantly, there have been at least 2 mentions of it still being spring since that arc. I was honestly way into this theory until I was reminded of those instances. So, what's going on here? How do we explain this calendar? For that, we have to look outside of the series and into the real world of this being a manga. I half lied to you all when I said earlier about July and August being the months that are back-to-back 31-day months, but this also does occur for December and January, so that would make this a January calendar as it is the following month in this scenario. Though when looking at the 1st being on a Saturday and the 31st on a Monday, this only lines up for January 2011 and January 2022, and we are obviously not in January as the school year started in April. But now let's move on to what I said about being outside the manga. To keep it short, art is hard and expensive and takes a long time. So there's a number of, I don't want to call them shortcuts because that makes it sound bad, but helpful assets that artists can use to speed up the process on things like backgrounds. Don't want to waste time drawing a city landscape as your backdrop for your scene? Purchase the rights to use this generic one so that you, the artist, can focus on the more important stuff like drawing the characters. In fact, here's a great example. You know that rooftop that we all love that is the location of 90% of this manga? Well, here it is, and you could use it too. Just purchase the license from this website. Not only the school rooftop, but the very candy shop's exterior that is used in this chapter can be found too. And though this is only speculation and has yet to be found, it might be safe to assume that the interior might also be an asset that they acquired to use. And the fact that the calendar is a January calendar kind of solidifies that for me. When you're going to make a generic background for inside of a candy store, just putting the first month of the year as the calendar seems the most efficient. So yeah, I think we can chalk this up to assets just being assets. But the use of a generic calendar that kind of closely resembles the timeline of the series is kind of funny. But now that we've gone through all of that, let's finish up the chapter. It's time for some taste testing for Kimari as she experiences some of these sweets for the first time, like a pastry that has flavored powder inside that you can suck through a straw, and also gets tricked by Kasuri to try some gum that turns her tongue bright red. And she even wins a free treat by having the Kanaku stick that has the red tip. Also, I love that Nemu here fell asleep in between like 2 panels because I guess that sugar hit wasn't strong enough to keep her awake. And all this newfound fun that Kimari is having starts having to reflect on what it would have been like if she participated in these kinds of events when she was a student herself. But not knowing any of the snacks and candies has Himika and Karane start to question Kimari that even if going after school was against the rules, that she must have gone on the weekends or other times. But Kimari admits that she was embarrassed because going to the candy store was more of a social activity that you did with friends and she didn't have any friends, nor does she have any currently. But the world's most accepting polycule turns that right around on her, saying that they are now all her friend. Once again continuing the trend of this series that every one of Rentaro's girlfriends is a social outcast of some kind that needs the family for social support. After realizing that they are all serious about being her friend, Kimari can't help but let out a cheerful chuckle with tears in her eyes, which everyone in the family finds cute and also somehow recreates this shot from the original His Name chapter. Which leaves Kimari all flustered getting called cute as she believes she isn't. And that's Girlfriend 33 Kimari Morikita for you. A solid start with a much better follow-up. I'm now a much more bigger fan of hers, and I look forward to see how her dynamic works with Rentaro and everyone else, especially once they start doing chapters full of antics like the aquarium chapter for example. If I had any critiques for this chapter, I kind of wish it leaned more into the other adults of the group like Natty and Momoha being more of a focus on bonding with Kimari, particularly at the end where they all tell her that they are her friends now. Being friends with a bunch of students is fine and all, but I think the bigger deal hopefully in the future is that she now has friends her own age. I hope future chapters show the 3 of them, maybe even 4 with Hahari all hanging out. But before we get to that, we have another flirty daily life chapter to tackle with part 6. I'm gonna start taking some bets on who is gonna get one. The only one for sure is Kimari because of the new pattern, but Natty and Chio are due for one as well. They haven't had a flirty daily life segment since the original 2. Then I'll have Earl here put up the posters of the others who haven't had one since part 3, so they are very likely. Not to mention also the new girlfriends who haven't had one since this segment started with Saki, Nemu, and Hasuwa. But I will see you all next week as we find out. I've been Moonlight150, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all next week for all the diabetes that those flirty daily life chapters bring. See you next time.
Cross.